Hi, I'm Devin Kerner. Welcome to this week's show. There's one thing that every real estate agent learns very quickly when they begin their career, and that is the greatest fear of every seller is the fear of underselling. So some agents will tell you that the best way to get the highest price when selling is to go to auction. But is that really the case?
In certain markets, auction might be good, and I think that was pre-COVID, post-COVID. However, as the market condition changes, so does the auction environment.
That's AJ Chand, an experienced agent and a director of Proptech Australia. Hear more about what he has to say today as he catches up with Bushy later in the show. And then we switch the conversation to that other hot topic, affordability. And Bushy will catch up with Real Estate Institute of Australia President Leanne Pilkington.
Realty Talk and your host, Bushy Martin.
Now, there's an old myth and almost an unwritten, generally held belief that keeps getting perpetrated in property cycles and property circles that to get the best price for your property, you need to sell at auction. But does this really hold true, and is it really still the case? Well, to investigate this and uncover some alternative opportunities, we're joined by dynamic PropTech entrepreneur AJ Chand. The CEO of RESO is also a director of the Proptech Association of Australia and a licensed real estate agent in New South Wales. So welcome to Realty Talk, AJ.
Thank you for having me, Bushy. Long-time listener. So grateful for the opportunity to join you today.
No, I've been really looking forward to having a chat and spreading the word about some of the awesome work that you're doing in this space. But I guess focusing on the subject of a minute, does an auction actually guarantee that the vendor will get the best price, AJ?
Simple answer, no. I think there is no guarantees when it comes to selling property, first of all, but definitely in this market, the auction process does not guarantee the best price for the vendor. Simply because if you look at last month's numbers through CoreLogic, only 56% clearance rate, which was 268 properties sold, and about similar amount of properties sold prior to auction. So out of 1,000 properties, so that just paints a picture, Bushy, that in certain markets, auction might be good, and I think that was pre-COVID, post-COVID, there where we had historically low interest rates. There was a lot of buyer appetite for property sales, and some and auctions were getting great results. However, as the market condition changes, so does the auction environment. And right now, I think our numbers are suggesting that it is not a great auction market. So it does not guarantee the best price for the vendor. No.
Given all of that, and given the work that you're doing with RESO, can technology actually deliver the best of both worlds for a vendor by actually offering the competitive tension of an auction that you spoke about, along with the privacy of a negotiation then?
Yes, certainly. And I think this was one of the biggest puzzles for us to solve when it came to RESO. We tried to create a win-win-win scenario for the vendor, the agent, and the buyer. And I think the buyers are often neglected as well when it comes to developing technology that sort of bridges the gap. So RESO, in essence, is an offer management technology. However, it has a lot of smart algorithms built into it as to how it creates the competitive tension. So what we do really is, just to give you a brief overview of what RESO does, it integrates with the agent's CRM and he pulls all the buyers for a certain property out and he invites them to a sale. In doing so, we qualify them. We know what their financial status is. We know all of their settlement requirements. And once the qualifications is done, they are prompted to make an offer on the property. And now this all happens within 5 minutes of them getting that invite. So they will make an offer on the property. And then what happens with that offer is submitted to the agent. And also the vendor can track that through a live view that they can see what's happening, what buyers are coming through, what they're offering for the property. And at the end of the selling process, we have a very unique algorithm called ranking. So what that does is that will prompt the buyer or let them know where they sit within the sale process. So they could be ranked, say, number 1 or number 2, and that is without disclosing the price of wherever other buyers are. So it will sort of prompt you to increase your offers. And that often happens. We usually get 3 to 5 offer increases per buyer through to doing that. And the whole idea is to keep the buyer in the loop, create maximum transparency for all parties involved, and to create trust in the process. So the buyer can then increase their offer as they go, and they can increase their rank, or they might reduce in their rank, and the agent could rank, say, every 24 hours, a couple of days before closing the sale. And all that means is that there's a lot of competitive tension between the buyers, because they can see where they're ranked. And if they really like the property, they put their best foot forward and they keep increasing the offer. And often we see the rank 1 person also increase the offer because they want to maintain position. And that wouldn't happen in an auction. You wouldn't go to 890 and outbid yourself by another 100 grand to get to 990, for example. So the technology, first of all, creates a lot of transparency, which then gives trust in the process. And also it helps the agent, because even in hot markets, when you think about it, you've got 100 buyers per property, and you're trying to negotiate an offer for the vendor, and you're trying to get them to increase their offer 3 to 5 times. That is about 500 touch points over 100 buyers. That is pretty much impossible to do in most cases. But the technology can do that very effectively, very efficiently. It can communicate with everyone and let them know how the sale process is going. So the idea was to create a win-win-win situation for the vendor and the buyer and the agent as well. And what this process really demonstrates is the trust in the process. So even the buyers that don't win property with us and then miss out, they had an equal opportunity to fight for that property, which is what the aim is. And they're still satisfied because they had a chance. And you would know, Bushy, we've bought property before, and I've missed out on properties before for $5,000 or $6,000. And I did not even know about it until I saw the sale price that it went for when I looked at the data later on. And would I have gone extra $5,000 or $6,000? Yes. Was I given the opportunity? No. It's simply because the agent was overrun with the amount of demand for that property. So we're trying to eliminate all those things. We're trying to make it more efficient. We're trying to get more trust into the process. And we're trying to create unique algorithms that bridges the gap between private treaty and auction. And it's almost a subclass in itself now, where agents are using the RESO process to sell property, which is predominantly a private treaty process. However, it has some of the better elements of auctions built in through technology.
No, I love it. It's almost a technology version of the best offer approach, where there's the opportunity to have second bites of the cherry. One quick question on the exercise. It sounds like at the moment RESO is pretty much price focused, and as you would know, quite often properties are sold not just on price, but it might be terms in terms of how quickly, no finance, etc. How is that encompassed within the RESO model?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what actually happens, the agent does not have to pick the number 1 rank, not always. And the vendor doesn't have to pick number 1 rank. Usually we see rank 3 or rank 4 if they're $20,000 or $50,000 off the sale. However, they're a cash buyer, which means there's a higher likelihood of the property settling. The agent or the vendor might opt to go for the 3rd or the 4th buyer for that matter. And when we qualify the buyer, we do ask them about those conditions. And if it's a cash offer, then we do put them, we let the agent know, and the agent could potentially pick them over the number 1 rank, which could be contingent to a long settlement, or it could be contingent to finance getting approved. So usually the agent or the vendor will see that as a risk, and they will go with a different buyer in that case.
Love it. I love the openness and the transparency of what this creates, and the opportunity for all parties really to know exactly what's going on in the context of the process. So look, we've only really scratched the surface. We'll look to talk with you more about the opportunity moving forward, because it's really opening our eyes and ears to a price optimizing and deal optimizing Proptech opportunity, AJ. And we love the way that you are disrupting industry and improving the property experience for the benefit of all. So thanks for taking the time to share all of this with us on the show today.
Thank you, Bushy. It's been great, and I appreciate you spreading awareness for Proptech and how we're solving issues in the real estate space.
Now, this year was supposed to be the one in which the property sector finally experienced some relief from higher interest rates, as property prices and affordability were supposed to ease, and housing supply and affordability was supposedly going to improve. But for the most part, it certainly hasn't worked out that way. So to discuss why and what can and should be done about it, if anything, and what this means to you, we're joined by one of the real estate industry's most respected thought leaders, Leanne Pilkington, the CEO of boutique real estate group Lang & Simmons, who leverages her 3 decades of veteran expertise as the president of the Real Estate Institute of Australia. So welcome back to Realty Talk, Leanne.
Hi, good to see you again.
Thank you. Now, we're sort of getting straight into the subject here. What impacts are inflation and interest rates having on the real estate industry as you see it?
Well, what's really interesting right now is the increasing number of people that are selling that have only been in their homes for between 12 and 36 months. We've seen previously the average time spent in a home has been getting longer and longer, sort of it moved from 7 years to sort of 10 or 11 years. And now we're just starting to see people cannot cope with the interest rates and the cost of living, and everything's getting too much, and they're selling very quickly. So it's quite concerning.
Very interesting. I wasn't aware of that, so I appreciate you sharing it. From your perspective, what does a higher for longer world mean for the property sector then if this continues?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to, because a lot of those people are either trying to downsize or they're renting, right, which is not great for our home ownership rates over the medium term. We are, as we're recording this right now, we're seeing some of the big banks reducing their interest rates marginally. They're also reducing their the rates that they're paying people that have got money in the bank. So that is usually an indication of where they see interest rates going next. It's just a matter of when. So I think we're all pretty confident that the next rate increase or the next rate movement will be down, but it's just a matter of when that's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Now, within the context of this then, how much longer do you think the current housing market can sort of defy that higher interest rate regime as well as the low listing supply that we're currently seeing in many parts of the country?
Well, that's the challenge, right? If we've got lack of supply, that's what's putting pressure on prices, because it's very unusual to see prices increasing in a high interest rate environment. It has happened before, but it's unusual. But whilst there's a lack of supply, people are going to be in competition with each other. And we have to remember that only a third of people actually have a mortgage. A third of people own their homes outright. And we are seeing increased, as us old baby boomers get out of our houses, we can afford to buy something without a mortgage typically. And so that it's really making it very hard. It's a really unusual market.
Totally is. The old housing supply and affordability gets a fair bit of media and press, particularly in recent times. From where you're looking at it, what are the sort of sustainable solutions for these, if there are any?
Well, I think that's above my pay grade, to be honest. I think I'd be, if I had that crystal ball, part of the problem is there's not one solution. There's a series of solutions. We need to get more people into home ownership, whether that is rent investors. It's not just all about first home buyer owner occupiers. We need to be more flexible in our approach to that. We need the government to be setting and achieving realistic targets for housing. We need to understand that we can't set those big targets and not have any tradespeople on the ground to do the work. We need to have better relationships between councils. I'm trying to redevelop my house, just subdividing a big block of land at the moment, and the hurdles and the costs involved, it's just nuts. It doesn't make any sense. So we need to have a look at all of the red tape. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, and I don't think there's an appetite for most of the stakeholders to actually do that, despite what we're hearing from government.
Yeah, it's a good call. I think the challenge from where I look at them, we're probably the similar vintage, Leanne, and been involved in the industry for a similar length of time. The big thing that I'm seeing is that governments at most levels back in the 70s right up until almost the early 80s actually were hands-on with the supply of some housing that provided a safety net for those most in need. Since the privatisation generation, where banks have become where governments have become pretty Teflon in pointing the finger at the private sector, and then wondering why the private sector isn't building more when the private sector is funded on profitability. That's our major driver. If we don't make a profit, we don't survive. And therefore, we
can choose to invest anywhere. Why are we investing in housing when stamp duty is just so expensive? We're not paying stamp duty on share transactions. So why not spend, $500,000 or $600,000 on a share transaction instead of on property?
Yeah, it's an interesting exercise. I guess from where I sit, I think government needs to actually roll up the sleeves a little bit and not just throw money at stuff and then make it someone else's problem. I think for that the social housing arena in particular, they need to actually step onto the playing ground and soak up some of that, so that the private sector is focused on providing houses for those who can afford to make that happen. But
absolutely, I mean, we know that the social housing wait list is just blowing out. It's last time I looked at the numbers, it was more than a decade long. I mean, that is just outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Now, I guess the other area that's copping a fair bit of flack in recent times are the old Airbnb or short-term rentals. What's your read on the impact that they are having on housing affordability and availability?
In some areas, it's really significant. The Real Estate Institute of Australia actually did a short-term report on short-term housing. I'm happy to, short-term accommodation. Happy to send it through to you if you haven't seen it.
Yes.
But in some areas, it is really significant because people can get a much higher return, which, as an investor, that's what you're trying to do, is get that return. Some of those properties are lifestyle properties. So if you want to, have a holiday house in Port Macquarie or Byron Bay or wherever, if it's on the short-term market, then you can, and your family can enjoy it at the same time. So it's a really fraught argument, because on one hand, it's like, who are we to tell people what they can do with their home, their holiday home? Yeah. But on the other hand, businesses in some of those areas can't even get employees to come and work there because there's nowhere for them to live.
Yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum. As you said earlier, there's no easy solutions here because there's so many dynamics. And also, there's not the appetite, as you say. The political will, I don't think, is there.
No.
It's not. None of those approaches are vote winning, so they're not likely to get the Guernsey. And given the sort of election cycle we run through, there's no incentive really to take a long-term, potentially short-term, unpopular approach to sort some of these things out. But look, again, we probably only just scratched the surface, and we'd love to get you back to dig deeper into this and other subjects moving forward. But I just want to really thank you for giving us a quite a balanced perspective on the state of real estate and the associated housing supply and affordability challenges. And we appreciate you taking the time to share all of this with us on Australia's longest running and most popular property show. So thanks again, Leanne.
Hey, thanks for having me.